Webinar is broadcasting. Alrighty, hello everybody. We will get going in just a few minutes. We're going to give some people some time to join. Thank you so much for taking the time to connect with us today. We're excited. For those of you who are just joining, we're just giving it another minute or so. I know people are coming from other meetings and jumping on, grabbing lunch, so we will kick it off in a few.
I would say we should do the hour just so we can focus and tailor the time series, and then probably just have like a custom use.
I know the beginning of webinars can always be a little strange with everyone waiting, but we've got a chat going. Please let us know where you're from and we'll get started with Kelsey. Thank you.
Yeah. So it looks like people will still roll in and we have a little intro to do, so we'll give it some time. But hello, everyone. I'm Kelsey with Daxko. I'm so excited that you've joined us for today's session for our engagement strategy on enhancing your digital marketing as we're all thinking about preparing for summer camp. So during today's session, we'll discuss ways to help you drive camp registrations and help with engagement throughout your buyer's journey, and really walk through some tips and tricks to elevate your digital marketing strategy, as I said, for summer camp. Together, we're going to walk through ways that you will be things to consider for your team to be implementing as you're diving into your strategy, and how to be super intentional with messaging and the platforms that you use. Before we jump in, since I see we are still having some people roll through, just a few bits of housekeeping. All participants have been muted just to cut down on background noise, but certainly feel free to chat in your questions. We want this to be super engaging, and we will be sure to connect with you guys on any questions that you have. So without further ado, if my computer works, there we go. So today I am so excited. We are chatting with one of Daxko's experts in the digital space, our executive director of Daxko's digital agency, Kinnick McDonald. She has over 10 years of experience in the digital marketing field in a variety of markets. So welcome, Kinnick. Thank you so much for being our host today. Just to go through a quick agenda before I hand it off to Kinnick, we are going to be diving into what digital marketing is, just so everybody is on the same page. We'll go over a buyer's journey overview, some tips and tricks specifically for the nonprofit space on how to capitalize on advertising tactics, some market trends that we're seeing to help you take into consideration as you are preparing your strategy and getting ready for summer camp. And then we will go through a campaign example together prior to some Q&A. So if that sounds good, I will hand it off to Kinnick.
Thank you, Kelsey.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So welcome, everyone. I'm really happy to talk to you all and geek out on all things digital marketing. It's definitely my specialty, my forte. I love to talk about it, and I love to talk about it in terms of lots of different use cases. I think digital marketing is something that's definitely transformed since I've been in the industry, over just 10 years. As well as it's just evolved in its effectiveness, it's evolved in how it can be used. And I think it's beautiful because it's data driven, right? That's one of the reasons I love digital marketing, is it's data driven And as you can see here in this initial slide, right, there's the ability to kind of piece it all together to create this really effective ecosystem, no matter what you're trying to do, whether you're thinking about your entire digital marketing landscape and makeup, or if you're like, hey, we need to run a specific campaign for a specific outcome. So I want to just quickly just review digital marketing in general and all the various tactics there are. So this is just one small snapshot of all of the different tactics that can make up digital marketing. And they're all really centered around the website. And I bring that up because we don't necessarily talk about the website too much today, but I want everybody to understand that your website or your landing pages, they're extremely important in the success of your digital marketing, because this is where you're going to be sending people, right? So this is the end result. This is where you're hoping to gather that conversion in a lot of cases, especially if you're looking to track it full circle. So always take into consideration that final stop, whether it's your website or a landing page, when you're putting together a digital marketing campaign. And a high performing digital marketing campaign is definitely dependent on a high performing website or landing page. So we have here PPC and SEO. Those are short for pay-per-click advertising and search engine optimization. Both of those are going to help improve your visibility on the search engine results page. Everybody's really familiar with Google. Bing still exists. I don't know if y'all knew, but there's actually even Yahoo, right? So the search engine results page would be those pages that pop up when you query something that you're looking to know more about, whether you're looking for something nearby, you're asking a question, or you're doing research. The search engine results page is going to be the landscape that you'll be given when you make a search query. And there's both paid and organic results. So pay-per-click, those are those paid ads. SEO, those are those organic listings, and the SEO is the work you do to get that visibility. There's also directory listings, so Google My Business, Yelp is a directory listing, right? Reputation management, when you're thinking about your reviews or what people are saying about you online. Digital marketing is very closely connected to conversations online, right? There's the ability to have prospects and members get direct access to other communities, share recommendations, give their feedback on their experience, right? It's very social, conversational. It happens on social platforms, it happens on your directory listings or reviews platforms, and it also happens within comments, right, everywhere. So reputation management needs to be taken into consideration. The content in which people engage with, that's really relevant to digital marketing. We talked about the website and landing pages. That's directly related, right, to the content itself. Social media, we're all familiar with the standard platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. And email marketing, I don't know if everybody always quite connects, email marketing to a digital marketing tactic, even though you're, sending it to a list of known contacts, right? It is still a part of your digital marketing makeup. It's still an important tactic. And I like to think of these as all complementary, right? Depending on what your goal is. So you really want to ensure that you're not just executing email over here by itself and SEO over here by itself and reputation management or your directory listings over here by themselves. They can really be thought of together in how they work together for that end goal. So the best way to be thinking about how they all work together is by taking it back to the buyer's journey. Anytime I'm getting started with a initiative, a push, a campaign, I always take a minute to bring back up the buyer's journey. As I kind of mentioned before, you can think of the buyer's journey across the board for your entire, marketing strategy. And then it can also be extremely relevant for a very targeted specific push, for example, summer camp. So for those of you that aren't aware, the buyer's journey is a stage of 3 specific stages. We kind of added in an extra one because I'll get to it in a little bit for just 2021, what to expect with 2021. But awareness, consideration, and decision are the 3 primary stages. And what this is telling us is it's giving us the roadmap or guidance to what your prospect is going through in terms of their buyer's journey. When they're in the awareness stage, they don't know what they're looking for. All they know is that they have a particular need. So as it relates to summer camp, I'll get to audiences in a second, but maybe a mom is looking for something for their child who, you know, maybe their child's shy, right? Or maybe they're working on some particular, I would say they're looking to enhance some skills, or they want the opportunity for their kid to get out and explore, right? All they know is that they've got this pain point, right? All they know is that they want to find somewhere where their kid can socialize with other kids in their area and they can get outdoors more, right? So they're going to search for things like outdoor activities, things in my area, right? And it's through that research, right, or that awareness, that they'll start to pinpoint what it is that they actually need. So then when you hop into the consideration stage, I'm looking for some kind of an experience to, I want to send my kid to summer camp, right? So now I know exactly what it is that I want to do. I'm in the consideration stage, and now I'm just evaluating my options, right? So this is where you can get into, I've got, 4 different summer camps I'm thinking about sending my child to. I'm going to evaluate the pros and the cons to all of them and ultimately get into making my final decision. So you want to make sure as a marketer that you are in front of your prospect in every single one of these stages. I think too often marketers kind of hop to the end, right? We just assume that everybody's looking for exactly what it is that we offer, and we forget to reach them earlier along in the buyer's journey in those awareness stages. So it's really, really important that you're thinking of every single one of these stages and making sure that you have a tactic to align to each stage. In addition to tactic, you're also going to want to make sure that you're aligning your messaging, right? If somebody's just curious about where can they send their kid to get more outdoor experience, hitting them hard with a sign up for this 5-night summer camp, week-long summer camp experience in that awareness stage isn't likely going to be successful. You have to kind of understand that you're going to educate them on, hey, here's a great opportunity to achieve your goal, right? To fit your need, and that is summer camp, and then bring them along the journey to ultimately convert. So we'll go ahead and hop to the next slide to start to connect the dots a little bit more. I talked about tactics in the beginning, right? You want to think about all the various tactics for digital marketing. And then now we have the ability to look here at how those tactics align to the buyer's journey itself. So you can start to piece together, okay, I'm going to need to do some social here for awareness, get everybody warmed up, right? Get their attention. And then I'm going to take them into the consideration stage. That's going to be maybe an email push or something like that, right? And then ultimately, when it's time to make the decision, right, and time for them to sign up for camp, it's like make the sale. How am I going to do that? I'm going to do that through maybe some highly targeted marketing automation. Maybe it's a really specific landing page on the website with a really clear, powerful call to action, right? There's a lot of different ways to use tactics very intentionally along this buyer's journey. And you always want to make sure that you're changing your language along the way too, okay? Messaging, tactic, purpose, as well as where they're at in the buyer's journey, all really important to think about when you're thinking of messaging. So awareness language is language think of it as educational, right? Informational. You're helping connect the dots between the person's pain point, their need, and your service, okay? And you're like their guru, right? You're gonna take them along this journey, and you're gonna help educate them on the value of summer camp, and then why ultimately your summer camp's the best option for them. And that language will flow accordingly to the buyer's journey. So we've talked a lot about like the tactics, we've talked a lot about the buyer's journey. We've talked a lot about how those tactics align to the buyer's journey. I always like an example, so that's what we have here. So awareness, what we have shown here is an example of how it's that initial Google search, right? I don't know the stat, and I'm kind of a numbers freak, so I'm not gonna missay a stat, but I can tell you right now, a very high percentage of people's initial queries about just about anything in life happens on Google. The first place people go to when they've got this thing they have to figure out is Google. So that's what we have here, right? The ability to leverage pay-per-click ads, really solid search engine optimization on your website, writing blogs that relate to people's pain points and the content that they would be interested in or searching for. That's all extremely important in showing up in this first stage of somebody's buyer's journey, and that is awareness. Then once you've captured their attention and hopefully captured their information, right, through those initial stages, you have the ability to continue the conversation. Here we've chosen to continue the conversation through email. That's the consideration stage, showing it on their phone, because I think it's always really important to remember that awareness, consideration, decision happens throughout a variety of different mediums and devices. So maybe they're at their work computer, and then they're at home on their tablet, and then they're waiting in line at the grocery store on their phone, right? But you've got to ensure that all of your tactics and devices, right, they're going to be able to show up correctly on those devices no matter where that person is in the journey. So consideration, they've got an email, you help educate them a little bit more on camp in general and start to maybe connect the dots for them that your camp can help fulfill their need, right? And then ultimately decision, right? This is a landing page. We've got them fully educated that they want to send their kid to camp. It's all about comparing the logistics now and making that decision. So we've got a really concise landing page that can help them make that decision and kind of get them over the edge. So this is an extremely important piece to helping drive that initial kind of like strategy alignment layout, and that is knowing your audience and understanding that your audience can typically be broken up into 3 groups when you're running a particular type of campaign. So you're typically, from a marketing perspective, going to want to run something for new prospects, right? This would be new lead gen. These are people that have never met you before. Maybe you've crossed paths in the internet, right? Maybe you've crossed paths, they're familiar with your brand, but maybe they're not. It could be cold strangers. The second group to always consider is re-engaging past members. So these are going to be people who are familiar with you, but are not actively connected to your brand, right? So a different type of relationship, but equal opportunity there with them. And then there's the third group, which is going to be, you know, your current members, right? People who are familiar with your brand and engaging with your brand. You're going to want to make sure that when you're setting up campaigns, that you're not trying to lump all 3 of these audiences into one. It's really important to break them out, because as we mentioned, messaging is really important based on the tactic. Message is really important based on their stage in the buyer's journey, and messaging is really important based on their audience type, right? Even if your end goal for all 3 of these is the same, how you're going to speak to them, how you're going to reach them, and how you're going to appeal to their needs is much different based on where they're starting in these categories. There's also a lot of fun you can have when you're talking about audiences that you already know. We won't get into these details. This is the nitty-gritty, but remarketing, right? Retargeting, re-engagement. If you have the contact information for people in those bottom 2 categories, there's more that you can do through your digital marketing to really target them and speak to them specifically. So make sure to take the time to break up those groups and create unique campaigns for all of them. Nonprofits have a great opportunity in the industry. Digital marketing industry, that is. Google has a lot of tools and a lot of opportunities for nonprofits to take advantage of. I'm sure you maybe have heard of some of these, but if not, you've got to take advantage of this. This is basically like free money and free resources waiting for you. So nonprofits can take advantage of what's called a Google Grants account. It's up to, I believe, $10,000 in advertising dollars available through a Google Grant account. So using just your nonprofit number, it's really easy to sign up online. You can just set up a Google advertising account, a Google Grant account specifically, and they'll approve it. And then they will assign you advertising dollars based on that approval. All you need is your nonprofit ID to set that up. But this is an incredible opportunity that every nonprofit should be taking part in, even if you don't feel comfortable. Like, you might be thinking to yourself, that, oh, you know, I'm not 100% familiar with Google Ads. Like, I don't know if I would be taking on too much there. Google does a great job of providing a lot of help documentation and help material. There's also a Google Grants account is set up in a way to make it really easy for nonprofit marketers to kind of run and take advantage of. And there's a comment in the chat regarding the monthly, or the amount there, 10K. That is up to 10K per month, just to clarify. So it's a significant investment that you can take advantage of. The next one, this is also offered by Google because Google owns YouTube, but there is a YouTube nonprofit program. So we all know that one of the most effective ways to tell a story, right, is through video. And I'm sure you all have invested a lot in video, and video is one of those tactics that can be extremely helpful in your buyer's journey, right? Telling the story and using those different tactics to kind of share your video content and share your story. So YouTube has a nonprofit program kind of platform that you can apply for or apply to be a part of. And you get really cool access to resources and tools and platform enhancements that aren't available to other advertisers or users, that you can access by just joining the YouTube nonprofit program. So similar sign up, setup process as with Google Ads, but I always, anytime I'm talking to any nonprofits, I have to make sure every single person is taking advantage of these two just free services when it comes to digital marketing. It would be amiss if we didn't talk about 2021, coming out of 2020. What can we expect in the search landscape? What can we expect in terms of buying behavior? How is that going to be impacted? 2020 was a significant year in a lot of ways for a lot of people. I have been recently, just personally in my own work, thinking of 2021 as a transitional year. I do anticipate it to act very different. I mean, I think we've already seen search trends and various buying behaviors change from 2020 to 2021. But what I want to emphasize, though, is that transitional and different does not necessarily mean bad. I think it can be a huge opportunity. Anytime you get a mix up in buying behavior, you get a huge opportunity to test new messaging, test new tactics, potentially reach new people in your campaigns. And I would just encourage anyone that's doing any kind of, advertising or new campaigns through this transitional year to take advantage of this transitional year, take advantage of that change and those differences. And how are you going to take advantage of that? Do your research, know your numbers, okay? Another thing that always gets missed, I think, as marketers, we do our best to make sure that while we're setting up campaigns, that we're implementing tracking and that we can report on success, But I think sometimes we forget to take the time in the beginning to go ahead and use data from previous years, use data from research tools online in order to be able to help guide and drive our strategy for an upcoming campaign. We use Google a lot, Google Trends, okay? They're a big name in digital marketing. They're a hugely valuable resource here, but here's an example of where we used Google Trends or the Google keyword tool in order to see how search volume or how search behavior is performing for the term summer camp. This happens to be targeted, as you can see in this screenshot. You can narrow it down to your location. That's really important to do, right? Location is very key when you're advertising for an actual kind of, we call it a brick and mortar location, but you can make it specific to your area. You can throw in a bunch of different search terms or queries to evaluate and compare, but really get a gauge. This is for the last 90 days. Get a gauge for how's the search environment trending for those terms. As you can see here, it was basically nothing until the very end of January, right? So nobody was even, at least for Birmingham, Alabama, summer camp wasn't even on anybody's mind. It looks like it was tested out a little bit. If I had to say, this is what, yeah, end of November. Tested out a little end of November, people wanted to see, and then completely quiet, and then sparks back up at the end of January. It's just really important to understand for your market, your area, and for the terms and queries that you would be bidding on or running pay-per-click campaigns for, or optimizing your website for, right? It's really important that you understand their presence within the search landscape, and if they're relevant, if it's spiking, if it's not, because that behavior is going to be a direct reflection of your ultimate success, right? And there's a lot of situations where this type of research can help drive your content, it can help drive your timing, and it can help drive the platform that you choose. So we already mentioned considering your audience, right? But in the research stage, while you're doing your research, you've got to take into consideration your audience. You also have to be very intentional with your messaging. This is good. We're getting to the part of the presentation where I'm repeating myself, which is a very, very good sign, okay? Because I want to make sure that I am being repetitive in these recommendations and effectively connecting the dots, because they're so important to remember as we flow through this. But make sure that you're thinking about your audience. Make sure that you're looking at your audience specifically, not only to the end goal that you want them to all ultimately convert on, but also who are they and what's their relationship to you. Be intentional with your messaging based on that. And make sure that you're set up to track performance and learn. One of the beautiful things about a transitional year that I kind of mentioned is the ability to test, right? The ability to take advantage of the change itself, to lean into that change, right? Well, you want to make sure that you're set up to track that performance, because in order to make that valuable for your future campaigns, right? We always want everything to build off of each other. We don't ever want you to have to feel like you're starting over the next year, right? You should be building off previous performance. It's really, really, really important to make sure that you've got all of your tracking set up correctly. And that'll be easy to do, especially if you're doing a really good job of mapping out from the beginning all of your tactics, how they're going to be used, what is used when, and you've got that kind of framework. It then makes it a lot easier to then create consistent tracking across the board, so that you can really report back on performance once complete and leverage that to influence your campaigns in the future. I think I mentioned that I'm a little bit of a data geek. I love numbers. So of course, working with Christy and Kelsey before this, you know, it came up like, what's going on right now? What are we seeing across um, all the Y's and J's, right? In January 2021. So this is actually our data. This is year over year January registrations for camp and childcare. And we're seeing a spike. I have to note this is just in the way that it is in the system. This is a combination of childcare and camp. But what we're able to compare here, even though 2020 is technically our pandemic year, January, at the time of January, COVID was not necessarily the topic of discussion, right? Business was still operating as normal. So we have a really good comparison here of performance year over year to give us an idea. Even if you look back to 2019, right? You know, if we had to compare there, we're still seeing more registrations compared to 2019. So this is an indication that more people are looking for summer camp. More people are looking for summer camp and childcare in terms of this data, but it's a ripe opportunity for you to take advantage of that change. So now let's talk about how we would piece together a campaign, as we mentioned before. So we're talking here to re-engage past members. Okay, that's our audience. I would actually recommend, because camp didn't happen last year for everyone, I'm pretty sure. I know things are always a little different by location, but I'm pretty sure camp didn't happen for anyone last year. You're re-engaging your past members, right, or past campers. That's going to be your low-hanging fruit. I would start there when you're like, okay, how do I prioritize? Who do we go after first, right? It's going to be less expensive to target them because they're familiar with you, they're familiar with your service, and they're familiar with your offerings, and you already have a bit of a rapport built up with them, right? And you know their information, which means you can use your tools and tactics differently because you have audience information. So let's talk about how you do that. Awareness. And we've done here just kind of one simple tactic per stage, just to show you how you can think about it in terms of just the most simple view. But there is the ability to layer on multiple tactics per stage, right? And kind of cast a broader net. But for re-engaging past members, you probably want to start with some social media advertising, right? You can easily upload a list of past campers into Facebook specifically. Facebook can match on that information, and then Facebook can take it even further, right? So they can match on that information and they can show ads to exactly those past campers, those people, right? Or you can expand your audience and say, hey, I want to reach these people, and I also want to reach people who are like them. I don't know if you've ever watched The Social Dilemma. Warning, it will make you second guess everything you do on social media, but it's worth a watch because of how interesting it is and how well it explains how the various social platforms are taking as much information as they can figure out about us, right? To be able to very intelligently group people together in similar cohorts of people. So like people, you know, so I upload a list, I want people who are like this list. Okay, here are 20,000 additional people who are similar to that list you uploaded, right? So that likely means that if they're similar in their likes, their interests, their demographic information, they're probably very, very similar in their interest in camp, right? So take advantage of those tools, take advantage of that audience targeting, and just make sure that your messaging applies. You know, hey, we're back up and running, you know, back up and running with more safety precautions than ever, right? Or here's new opportunity, use really relevant imagery and messaging, whether you've got imagery with masks or imagery or messaging that can connect to your audiences, but really let them know that, hey, we're back in action. You know, come learn more about what we have to offer this season. And then once you've had the opportunity to get them to engage and become familiar with coming back to camp, right, through your awareness and social media ad, you can then go ahead and use that same list and send them an email. So they've had the ability to get familiar, they've read more, maybe you're promoting a blog, maybe you're promoting a landing page here where they can download a guide. You know, here's the 10 things to know about camp post-COVID. There's lots of different ideas for content, but they've engaged with you somehow through your awareness campaign. Now they're ready to learn more. So now it's time to go ahead and send them an email. You create that email based on your intention of the whole campaign. You know that you know these people. Maybe in the email, you're referencing the camp that they came to last time, right? Or the week that they were there, right? Whatever you can do to kind of make that language as familiar as possible and personalize is always best. Maybe you're giving them a bit more insight into what you have planned for camp, right? A little bit more educational. And then finally, after they've had a chance to open your email, read your email, engage with your content within it, you have the opportunity to those that are most interested, execute a highly targeted automation campaign. So here we have highlighted Conversica. This is an AI tool. I'm not going to get into the specifics of AI, but what you need to understand is it's human-based marketing automation. So this is all the speed and accuracy of a machine with all the heart and intention of a human. So you're able to create and start a Conversica campaign to reach out to those who are most interested in camp, who have engaged with you most along this journey, right? And set them up to either register or speak to a person to register, but a highly intentional goal here. And you can reach out to them via email and text message to make that final conversion. So this is just a quick high-level example of how you can re-engage past members through awareness, consideration, decision, a multitude of different digital marketing tactics to achieve your ultimate goal of registration for 2021. If your heads aren't spinning, then I want to know who you are because I need to learn from you. It's a lot. Digital marketing is so much, and it's grown, right? And as much as it's grown in its breadth and ability to achieve like awareness and capture such large audiences, it's also grown in its effectiveness, right? And we talked a lot about like algorithms, machine learning, you know, what Facebook's able to do with their algorithms, what we're able to do through AI communication. It's complex. There's a lot going on there, and I want to acknowledge that. So sometimes you just need help. So I think it's really important to just call out that there's the unique, I would say, offering within Daxko that we not only have incredible insight into business operations and helping to support Ys and Js in the nonprofit market run their business more effectively, live their purpose, right? Share your message. Not only do we have that deep understanding, but now we also offer these tools and services to help ensure that we can connect those dots and kind of create this full picture business consultative relationship. So it's a shameless plug, right? But we're here. We now have the ability to engage with you and help support you and kind of take what is a really complex, complicated industry, and we can distill that down into really simple, effective strategies for you. So support with digital marketing, support with the website, support with connecting the two. It's available. I highly recommend that you seek out resources, whether it's finding somebody to do it for you, it's taking advantage of all the free resources out there. it's getting coffee with a consultant, whatever you got to do. I just encourage you to dive into the discomfort and dive into the unknown, because once you get in there, it's a lot of fun, and it'll take your marketing strategies to the next level. So we have plenty of time for questions, which is perfect. There's one in the chat here that I just haven't had a chance to read. Let me just get caught up here. Okay, so we have a question here about how to leverage reaching back out to current members in a way that encourages them to kind of continue their relationship. The question here is that sometimes you'll reach out to members, right? And maybe they weren't fully using their membership, and then they hear from you and it's like a reminder to cancel. That happens all the time, right? Every time we send an email, I relate this to when people unsubscribe, right? You can't send an email without somebody unsubscribing, and it's such a bummer. But it's the nature of the beast, because of that one or two people that unsubscribed or reaches out and like, hey, this isn't right for me. You may have reached 10 that are like, oh, wow, that is really exciting. I want to know more and do more with you. So I think we just have to acknowledge that that's a general risk, but I would not shy away from continuing with your marketing activities because of that, because you've got to understand that you're, to those that you are speaking to that do resonate, the opportunity to engage on a deeper relationship with them and retain them on a grander level, and expand their membership with you, that is more valuable than those that are just going to opt out because they're not right. We wish we could be right for everyone, but we're not always. If you are concerned about that, there is always the opportunity, as I mentioned, to go beyond just email. So if you want to use a member list and upload that into social media or upload that into Google to create an ad, that might be a little bit of a softer way to reach out to people and be present without necessarily triggering something in their brain to take action. And they might not have that direct communication connect, so they might not take that same action. But don't shy away. But if you want to expand beyond just email, I would recommend that. We've got another question. Tell me more about uploading targeted lists into Facebook. Yes, so I'm going to refrain from getting into the nitty-gritty specifics of exactly how to do that, but within your audiences, while you're setting up a campaign within Facebook or within the audience section, there's the ability to create audiences for remarketing. So, and lookalike audiences. So there's the ability just within the audience tool. I can follow up with you after with like screenshots and everything, but it's through the audience section that you're going to be able to create your own audiences. And rather than using the typical audience generation, like by interests and likes, you'll have the ability to upload your own list to create a highly targeted remarketing campaign or a lookalike audience.
Kinnick, it looks like we have another question about ways you can approach changing your messaging by audience and by channel, if you want to dive into that.
Yeah, absolutely. We can talk a little bit more about that. I would say you want to change it based on, so we talked about this in terms of the buyer's journey, right? You're going to use more educational, softer language in the beginning. And then once they're getting down further into the decision stages, you're going to use more direct, specific messaging targeted to your end call to action. You're also going to change how you speak about your products and services and your brand You know, in the awareness stage, you're not going to hit them hard with, here we are a, you know, 75,000 acre summer camp in the woods of, I don't even know if there's woods in Nebraska, but this is very fictitious, in the woods of Nebraska, right? And we have feature, right? That's going to be too much for somebody in the awareness stage, because they're like, holy cow, I don't even know if summer camp's my thing, right? I'm just looking for social experiences outdoors for my kid. So soften your language. Don't always go hard with the features. Don't overwhelm them with who you are and what you have to offer, right? Your services. Speak to their needs and their pain points first. And it's as that relationship builds, it becomes okay to talk about yourself, right?
We have another question. First question, what was the name of the marketing automation tool that we dived into? That is Conversica. We are happy to send more information about that. If you do, you can always email marketing@daxko.com. And then we have another question for you, Kinnick, in Facebook ads. How many campaigns do you recommend running at once? And do you set up your campaigns typically by audience or by the message?
Yep. So I can't answer this like concretely, because again, it's always an evaluation on your audience, your end goal, right? And the content that you have to offer them. I would usually say though, you know, one campaign per audience is pretty sufficient. And then within that campaign, you can have several different ad variants. So you can play with your messaging within that. But I think usually as long as your audience is targeted enough and you can agree that the call to action for that audience is the same, one campaign and then testing a variety of different ad types within that, copy, imagery, etc., is usually pretty sufficient.
And this kind of, we have a question very similar. Best strategy for handling running multiple campaigns without diluting others. So similarly to what you were just speaking of, targeting that audience, getting more specific, testing the messaging.
Yeah. So that's why, you know, campaign in terms of audience, like aligning them, that can really help you ensure that you're not over advertising, right, to your audience or giving them too much, right? You don't want to be hitting them with a lot of different messages. You want to be very controlled. I only want to be speaking about camp to these past campers. I want to exclude them, right, from seeing other messaging or being a part of other messaging. So I think campaigns by audience type, making sure that you don't have overlap there, and wherever possible, as I mentioned, using exclusions. I think sometimes in digital marketing, exclusions are just as valuable as inclusions. Everybody's always looking at, well, what keywords do we want to target? What audiences do we want to target? And sometimes we miss, well, what don't we want, right? And having clear and concise guidelines as to what you don't want also helps improve you reaching those that you do want to reach.
Looks like we have one more we haven't touched on. We obviously talked about a lot for digital marketing, and it can be complex. So Kinnick, of everything that you talked about, what is the one digital marketing tactic that people should be doing?
What's the one thing?
That is the question. What would be your biggest recommendation?
Dang. Oh, I'm mad that you're making me say one thing, but I'll play. I would take advantage of Google, I guess. It would be between Google and Facebook. It would be between the two of them. They both have similar abilities in terms of like targeting and uploading audiences and remarketing. They also have extensive ad networks between the two of them. So there's a lot of similarities there. You can play with different Yeah, I say Google though because of the Google Grants account.
I was just about to say those specific
Yeah.
tactics we talked about.
Yeah, and the YouTube, that connects into YouTube and how powerful video is. So I would say, I know social's hot right now. I typically would never say don't look at social, but for this particular audience, I would say Google.
Cool. We'll give it another minute or so in case anybody has any more questions, but I do want to say we will be sending out a recording to everybody who attended. Thank you again for taking the time today. So we'll send that out. And then next month, we will be diving into how to prepare your marketing strategy for fundraising and raising awareness around that. As we know, that is very important to all of you. And for the wise, NATO is coming up. So be sure to have a look out for that. That will be coming in the next few weeks.
Look into YouTube. Look into YouTube nonprofit tools, because that's part of those resources is the ability to link out, collect donations. That's part of what they offer within that. So look into that before the next one.
Yes. I don't see any other questions. So Christy, hello, welcome.
We have one hidden question that came in. Everyone, if you don't know, today is Kinnick's birthday. So
Ooh, happy birthday, Kinnick.
Thank you.
Hopefully my birthday luck carried me through. Thank you.
Yes, happy birthday, Kinnick. Thank you for spending some birthday time with us. We really appreciate it.
That was my pleasure.
Awesome. Well, like I said, keep an eye out from us for a recording on this. And then if you do have any questions, please feel free to reach out to marketing@daxko.com to learn more about our digital agency and what we can do with digital marketing and websites and picking Kinnick's brain some more. But other than that, thank you guys, and we'll talk soon.